This is a video about locking cells, which has its application in multiple areas, and especially when we get into converting grades into letters. So it's important we actually understand what it means to lock a cell. Okay, so with my first example, I want to show curving grades. So sometimes it happens that we do need to modify grades, bumping them up or down or whatever. So let's say I have a bunch of grades here and I want to, kind of give all my students an extra 2 points or 3 points or something like that. So let's do a 3-point curve. Okay, so each student is going to get 3 points, and as you can see, this does get a little bit redundant having to put 3 a bunch of times there. Okay, but we'll solve that in a second. So in order to incorporate my curve, a couple ways. I can do equals the person's grade, person's grade, B2, and I can do it directly in here if I want, plus 3. Okay, and I can hit enter, and I can autocomplete. So basically everybody's grade, if I run down the list here, so B2, B3, B4, everybody gets a plus 3, and I've curved their grades. Okay, let me just get rid of that. And the other way is to actually reference the curve value itself. So equals 77 plus the curving grade, or the curve. Okay, and autocomplete, and you can see again it curves those grades. Now let me just show how these formulas are working. So I'm taking the grade of Ray here and I'm adding the curve. Okay, if I take this next one, you can see that it bumps down. Right, it goes to the next one. When I did the autocomplete, right, I dragged it down. Excel figures out that it wants me to use the next score, next curve. Right? Excel figures out next score, next curve, next score, next curve, etc. Okay. Now, if I don't want to write the number 3 so many times, right, and I say, okay, the curve is just 3 for everybody. Okay, so using the formula here, the grade of Ray plus the curve, enter. And as you can see, when I do an autocomplete, these other scores don't get the curve. Okay, and the reason, as you may have guessed, is that at first it does reference from Ray's score to the curve, and the next one it bumps it down, so John's score, and it tries to add the next one down, right? Keep bumping down as we autocomplete, and since these are all empty, right, it adds nothing. Okay. So how do I fix that? So I want to prevent Excel to keep bumping this value down. So it starts at F2, right? So that's F2 right there. And then when I get to John, it will try to add F3, and then Sally will try to F4, F5, F6, etc. So I don't want F2 to actually change. Okay, if you don't want something to change, a cell reference, if you don't want a cell reference to change, you have to lock it, and that would be hitting the F4 key. And don't type F4. It's the very top row on your keyboard. Those function keys they're called. So F4 will lock that, and you'll know it's locked because it puts $signs in there. Okay, you can actually type those $signs if you want, but it's just faster to hit the F4 button. Okay, so now that I've locked that, so I don't lock B2 because I do want that to bump down B2, B3, B4. Those I want to leave free to bump down, but this one I do not want it to bump down, so I lock it. Okay, so taking that, autocomplete, you can see now that as I go down this list, okay, keep your eye up here where you can see B2 changes to B3 to B4, etc. But the F2 never changes because it's been locked into place, F2 right there. So that's how you lock a cell reference. Okay, and we'll show how that's useful later on with the letter grades. And if you recall, I showed how it was useful when calculating this when I was multiplying by the weight, so multiplying Bob's score by the weight, and then when I tried to multiply May's score by the weight, what happened was the weight got bumped down to this row here, which was empty. So it was causing an error, and that's why I had to lock B5, C5, and D5. I had to lock B5, C5, and D5 so that would not change and not bump down. Regarding the curving, you might ask, why would I need to write it here? Why didn't I just do it the first way where I just wrote directly in the formula B2 plus 3 and just did an autocomplete there? Now the advantage of doing this way is that I can always change this number and it will be incorporated into the formula. So if I choose a curve of 4, you can see how it updates everything there. Curve of 5 updates everything. Whereas if I actually wrote the 4 or 5 in the formula, I would have to rewrite in the formula, autocomplete all over again. Okay, so a little bit more efficient doing it this way.